So paper one strategy. So the first thing to understand about language paper one is around the timings. So again, please write these down. So firstly, we have got 15 minutes. Okay, so 15 minutes to do the reading and the planning. So that involves reading all the questions, reading the extract, and planning out our responses. We have then got 45 minutes for section A, which leaves us 45 minutes for section B. Now again, with those timings, those are advised timings. So it might be that you need more time to read and plan, so you've got to take a little bit of time off here, a bit of time off here. But I find those timings tend to work pretty well. Paper one is only one extract. Okay, so for section A, you have to read the extract. You'll have an insert, looks like this. So 21st century prose fiction. Prose just means that it will be a novel. Labyrinth by Kate Moss or Mossy, an extract from a novel written in 2005. Okay, so before we read it, what we want to do is we want to just make sure we know what we're looking for. So we'll start in the question paper. So question number one. Question number one is worth 4 marks. It's the simplest question, but again, it's very easy to make errors on this. Read again the first part of the source, lines 1 to 4. List 4 things about Alice and her surroundings. Okay, so we can find any facts about Alice, any facts about her surroundings. Okay, remember for this one we are looking for facts. Okay, things that are true. Okay, they will try and trick you by having some metaphors, some similes, some imagery. Okay, that will try and trick you and confuse you. We then go to our copy of the extract. Okay, and we put down here 1 to 4. So block it off. Question 1, and we are looking for things about Alice plus surroundings. Okay, now that might seem like overkill, but the reason that we do that is so we do not make mistakes. If we pick out things that are not about these two things here, then we will not get the mark. Okay, and they are the easiest marks on the paper. Right, question number 2. So look in detail at this extract, lines 5 to 11 of the source. They reprint it for you here, but my advice is don't use this. Okay, do it on your main extract. It will help you a lot more in the future. Okay, so that's the extract we're looking for. How does the writer use language here to describe the mountain area? Right, so language, so we are talking about words, imagery, okay, all about the mountain area. Okay, there you go, words and phrases, language features, techniques. So those are things like metaphors or similes, personification, anything like that counts as language. Okay, sentence forms, I think they're pretty weak. I just cross them out, to be honest with you. To me, they're not really language. I'd ignore it. Don't know why that's there. Right, there we go. So over here we go 5 to 11. They're usually quite helpful. They will usually like help you out a little bit. If you talk about things that are not in this area here, even if they're amazing, you get 0. Okay, so question 2. Okay, we're looking for the mountain. What does it say? Mountain area. Okay, so the mountain area. Okay, now of course we know that this is language. So if you are very forgetful, you can even write an L for language, right? Maybe an F for facts, but that should be fine, right? Right, question 3. Question 3. Everyone's favourite question. The structure question, right? Structure. Now, do not be confused with this question. Structure is about the order of events. Okay? When writers use structure, they are putting things in order to achieve effects. So the order that things happen matter. Now we want to try and talk about what happens first, later, and as to how it develops as it goes on. Okay? The whole of the source. It will always be the whole of the source. Okay? The text from the beginning of a novel, that's useful, helpful. We know that there's nothing that comes before it. How has the writer structured the text to interest you as a reader. Now, with this, we have to decide what the overall effect is. So maybe the effect is tension, so it could be tension, or it could be mystery, or it could be action, right? We have to decide what the overall effect is. So the writer has made the text really exciting for this reason, or really tense or scary, okay? Their advice says this. So what the writer focuses your attention on at the beginning of the source. So how does it start? Again, the way something starts is important. Writers choose how to begin their writing. How and why the writer changes the focus as it develops. So develops means as it kind of builds, as it goes through. Any other structural features. So these are things like omission, or maybe like a flashback. But my advice is don't focus so much on these. Focus more on what's happening and why, and you'll do much better, okay? Now, in order to do this, what I advise you do is at the top of the source, I would write down question 3. Okay, and I would do 2 bullet points here. Now, normally I wouldn't write what these are, but I'll get you to write them just for the first time, okay? So, we've got this is for the overall. So we've got what happens in the overall extract. So throughout the whole thing that I read, this is what it's about. Okay? And then we want to think about the overall effect. So it might be that through this happening, the writer tries to make it tense or scary. Okay? So when we read it through the first time, we want to try and do this. Right? What's the overall effect of this? What's the writer trying to do throughout the whole of the story? Okay? What we then want to do afterwards is we're going to split it into 3. Okay? And we can put this here, we can put it down in the margin. So we're going to split into 3 sections. Okay, and what we do with that is every time we feel like it changes focus, we just draw a line through it. Okay? we'll come back to that one, okay? Question 4. There we go. So question 4 is what we call the evaluation question, right? So it's to evaluate. Now, what that means, to evaluate means to judge. And what we're judging is this person's view. Okay? They will give you a statement. Now the statement will always be true. It will always say something kind of obvious or truthful, an opinion about what they've read. What we need to do is evaluate it. So can we prove that the statement is true? But can we also prove the statement is maybe in some ways not true? So give our own reading as well as what they've read, okay? So, again, focus this part of your answer on the second part of the source, lines 21 to the end. It's very common, it will be the second half of the source, okay? If you write about the first half of the source, even if it's good, you will get nothing for it. They will cross it out, they will ignore it. Plenty of people do that because they do not read that. Please do not be that person, okay? A reader, so somebody who read it said this. This part of the story, where Alice decides to continue digging for the object, is very mysterious and suggests her discovery might be life-changing. Now what we're interested in here is opinions, sorry. So this is about opinions. Right, this part of the story, where Alice decides to continue digging for the object. Now that's just a fact, right? It's very mysterious. There is opinion number 1. We circle it, we write a 1. And suggests her discovery may be life-changing. That is opinion number 2. Okay. Now we need to prove that both of those opinions are true. What we also have to do is we have to disagree with one of them or both of them. So we'd have to argue that actually we could argue that it isn't life-changing. We could argue that it isn't that mysterious. Or we could argue that it isn't either of them together. The third one is then our own view, okay? So, consider the reasons why Alice decides to continue digging. Okay? Evaluate how the writer creates a sense of mystery. Okay. Support your response with reference to the text. So references to the text means we've got to have quotes, quotations. Evaluate how. So how is going to be about methods or techniques. So we've got some analysis in there. The reasons are these things up here. Okay. Now for this question, what we want to do is we want to try and write 3 paragraphs. Notice it's worth 20 marks. It's worth a huge amount of marks. Okay. Each paragraph we write, I'll do the structure for this now. Each paragraph we write is going to have to agree with something in the statement or disagree. Okay. And it's going to have to support it with 2 or 3 techniques. So you'd say, I agree that it's mysterious because of this going on. Okay, sorry, plus because. And these are the things the writer does to build up that effect. Okay. Now what I would do is go back to your source. Okay. So lines 21 to the end. So do this again. There we go. To the end. Question number 4. And then what I would do is, rather than write them down here, I would write them over here at the end of the source. So number 1, we are going to argue about it being mysterious. Okay. And again, we want to leave room for our techniques that we might want to use. Number 2, life-changing. Again, room for our techniques. And number 3, if we get that far, okay, we don't know what that's going to be yet because we haven't read it, but something of our own opinion, and again, 2 techniques. Okay, that should be enough, by the way, to get up to full marks. You shouldn't have to do 3. Some people like to do 3, but 2 should be enough. Okay, now with that in mind, what you can now do is you can actually just get rid of this. So move that out the way completely. Get rid of that paper. Because what you should now have is everything you need here. So we've got our question 3 focus up here that we're going to plan out. We've got our question 1. We've got our 2. We've got our 4 over here as well. Okay? So the idea is that rather than, again, what poor exam technique does is it answers question 1, answers question 2, and then gets confused, hasn't read the story properly. Okay, the key thing is you have to read the story properly before you start answering the questions. So this is my advice. The first thing you want to do is actually read the story. And what I would recommend is, at the edge of each of these paragraphs, just write a little note about what's happening. So it might be drinks water, digs in the ground, right? So that way you can get a sense of the story. Once you've read it all the way through the first time, what I recommend is you actually plan out question 3. Now question 3 will involve you turning the story into 3 moments. For each moment, you want to think about, I'll have this up here, you want to think about, again, what's happening, and you want to think about the effects. So at the beginning, here's what's happening in the story, and here is what it does to the reader. In the middle, here's what's happening in the story, here's how it changes our view. And at the end, here's what's happening in the story, and here's what it makes us think or feel. Now for effects, remember, we're trying to do detail, aren't we? So you want a couple of effects. Right, one effect might get you clear, one effect will definitely not get you perceptive. Okay, so that's the strategy. Now, to do this, we've got 15 minutes. So by the time 15 minutes is up, we want to have planned out question 3, question 1, question 2, and all of question 4, which will then give us 45 minutes to just write these up nice and calm. Okay, and what I'll do is I'll explain to you the structure of those in a moment. Okay.